How many of you have felt like at one point in time in your life you've gone through some type of struggle? I'm willing to bet that everyone feels this way. There's not a time in your life that you won't face some type of challenge. And we see that here in the Bible in Acts chapter 27, where Paul is on his way to Rome and he's on the ship. And this is where things start to get a little rocky for Paul. But when you're given an assignment, when you're given a mission, you got to see that mission through to the end. A ship sailing, especially in ancient days, could have been very dangerous for anyone. Nonetheless, a long voyage like what Paul has went on. And we know that these guys are fasting, and there's like 270 something of these guys on this 100-foot boat, and they're traversing rocky seas, and the wind's blowing because of the northeaster, and they're fasting and hungry and scared and afraid. And Paul's like, hey, we shouldn't go on this trip. The guy didn't listen to Paul. He listened to the pilot of the ship. And those are the book's words, not mine, because I know a pilot of a ship is actually a captain. Regardless, they listened to the captain of the boat instead of listening to Paul. And this brings us to the verses that I want to discuss to you today in chapter 27, but I'm going to read from 21 down. Since they had been without food for a long time, Paul stood up among them and said, Men, you should have listened to me and not have set sail from Crete and incurred this injury and loss. Yet now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only the ship. For this very night there stood before me an angel of the God to whom I belong and to whom I worship. And he said, Do not be afraid, Paul, you must stand before Caesar. And behold, God has granted you all those who sail with you. So take heart, men, for I have faith in God that it will be exactly as I have been told, but we must run aground on some island. Now, if you guys read this chapter or you're familiar with this story, you'll know that even up until this point, like I said, they've been without food for 14 days. They're throwing stuff over the side of the ship. They're throwing out cargo. They're throwing out wheat and grain because this is a grain ship that they're on. And they're throwing over the cargo and trying to lighten the load. And they're trying to slow the ship down because the ship's totally out of control. They've lost control. They're off course, way off course. They're not even supposed to be where they end up landing when they crash on the sea in Malta. And Paul told them, let's not do this. This isn't safe. We're going to die. Paul's been shipwrecked 3 times at this point. So he's got a little bit of experience when it comes to being shipwrecked. They still don't listen to him. And Paul's not saying this in a matter of like, I'm being haughty or I'm being arrogant. You should have listened to me. Not like those people when you get some advice and you ignore them and they're like, I told you so. You should have listened to me. That's not what Paul's saying here. Instead, what he's doing is he's trying to lay ground for why they should listen to him this time because they've already ignored one of his warnings before. This time it's backed by something different. An angel of God came to him with a message from God. Now, these guys aren't Christians, but what they do know is that Paul is. And Paul's already given them a warning that they ignored. Luckily for them, nobody died, but they did lose a lot of their cargo. They lost a lot of, injury and damage to the boat. Now he's saying that Paul told them at one point, we're going to lose lives. We're all going to die. But now he's like, hey, I've got a message from the angel of the Lord. And he's telling us that we're all going to live. Paul is the one that has to get to Rome. He's got to go in front of Caesar, as Jesus already appeared to him in his cell and told him, testify in Rome the same way that you did here. And so therefore him being on this ship guarantees everybody that they will live. Whereas like we see in the story of Jonah, where Jonah being on the ship guaranteed that everybody was going to die. So they threw him over the edge. Not only is it a blessing that they had Paul with them, but that they survived because Paul was also with them. Sometimes in our life, we go through storms and we don't see any earthly solution to the problem that we face, right? We're going through a storm. Sudden death is among us. We're going to crash upon shore, or we're going to crash the boat and we're going to drown, right? And these are all metaphors for, life's problems, the things that we think are important. And when we're facing dilemmas, problems, trials, tribulation, we're told to call on Jesus. And we're supposed to also count these trials and tribulations as joy, because in those situations, our faith gets strengthened. What season are you going through? What storm are you facing? You've tried everything. You've been jettisoning the cargo from your life, life's worries, life's problems, people, places, things, vices. You've been trying to get rid of everything in hopes that you would see breakthrough in this struggle that you're in. Sometimes there's a purpose for that, though. When you go through painful things in life, or when you go through situations and you don't understand why you're going through them, but then you make it through those situations, then later on down the line, someone else comes to you and they're telling you about their problems and they're telling you what they're facing and what they're struggling with. And then you realize, hey, this is what I've gone through. Let me tell you how I got through it when I went through this, just leaning on Jesus. And these are the steps that I took. Sometimes we don't see it that way. Sometimes we don't understand that there's a purpose in our pain. Sometimes you may be able to tell someone about the Lord or about breakthrough or some type of revelation in an area where you struggled that someone else couldn't, right? People might listen to me a little bit differently than they'll listen to someone else. And the same thing with you. Someone will take correction or advice from you before they take it from me, because we can relate to one another in a different way than they can. Don't let the storm scare you. Don't let your fear of the storm cause you to jump off the ship. Sail through the storm. Stay on the ship. That's your safety. Stay on the ship. Keep relying on Jesus. Have faith in the Lord to help you pull through. Sometimes there's a lesson to be learned. Sometimes there's some refining that needs to be done in our life. And these challenges, these adversities that we face all throughout life, every day that you're alive, there's a new challenge, right? It's never going to get easy. It never stops, because Satan never stops. Satan's got nothing but time. He ain't doing nothing all day long but trying to plot and plan on how to destroy you, right? They're never going to die. The demons, Satan, they never die. They just always sit here and try to destroy you. So while there's always evil in this world, the Lord's work is never done either. That's why we just got to keep on sailing through the storms that we go through. When we reach still waters, we have peace for a moment. But make no mistake about it, guys, there will be another storm to come. And through that, we'll have to rely on Jesus as well. But I say all this to say that in these storms, guys, make sure that you're relying on Jesus. Make sure that you put your faith in the one that can sustain you, that can help you. Don't try to control things in your own mind, in your own ways, in your own handling, because we're just not capable of handling everything. Let the pilot, let the captain, Jesus, steer the ship, help you to reach safety, and help you to make it through another day. That's going to do it for this one. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, God bless.